And there we go. Perfect. So very quick agenda. So just a little bit more detail about who we are, the eligibility criteria for our support. Very quick crash course. There's a couple really kind of key things that are happening this year. One is obviously COP26. A lot of talk about net zero. So I just want to cover that briefly and how that links in with what we do. Fuel costs, really important on that. And again, there's a big focus on heat pumps. So I just wanted to cover kind of the basics on that, on those. Obviously then talk you through with what we do. What our support is, how it works, what you get from it. There is financial support available through the Scottish Government in the form of an Sme Loan, so I'm keen to let you know what that is, and that does include some grant funding cashback. Very quick kind of case study just to highlight in practice what that could mean, and then we have loads of different resources available on our website, so I'm just keen to just almost kind of highlight them to you, so there might be something on there that's relevant. Important one at the end, just how to get in touch with us if you are keen or interested to get our support. So as we mentioned, we're a service of Zero Waste Scotland. We are funded by the Scottish Government and European Regional Development Fund. And really our remit's quite simple, is to provide free, impartial expert advice, helping Scottish SME businesses reduce their energy costs and reduce their carbon footprint. And you'll see as I go through the conversation or the PowerPoint, how the two are very often linked between saving you money and actually also reducing your carbon footprint on that. But it's not always the case on that. So why become energy efficient? And the reality, these are the kind of three main triggers that we know, we're aware of, or we've identified. One is all to do with legal compliance. So there's not much in place at the moment, but there are obviously some net zero targets. The Scottish Government one is 2045. So it's very likely that at some point, particularly for businesses, there will be legislation in place in terms of what you might have to do or what standards and levels you have to do things at. So there's nothing at the moment, but it has to come. In order for us to hit that target, there will be things coming into play. Your main reason or driving factor might be the rising costs of bills. And you're going, my goodness, it's costing twice as much as last year, or it's costing a fortune to run and operate your business. And that's absolutely fine. Again, it might be purely you want to do your part in terms of the climate emergency that we're in. You want to identify opportunities to reduce your carbon footprint, whether it's for yourself, for your business, whether it's to attract people to your business, because that is becoming more and more important on there, and it might be just part of what you want to do moving forward, being seen as a green business. The reality is, you'll see from the example from the report, it doesn't matter too much what your driving factor is. Our report, which I will share a sample of, will help identify those key areas. So I'll be using the term business predominantly when I'm referring to examples and things like that. But when we are talking about businesses, we're talking about SMEs, so small, medium enterprises. We are using the EU definition for this, and the simplest way to look at that is we're looking for businesses that have a maximum of 250 employees and have a turnover of less than 40 million pounds and approximately a balance sheet of about 35 million pounds on that. So if you're a sole trader, a partnership, probably a charity, a trust, limited or non-limited company, you're likely to fit under that. It's potentially the limited companies that you might have some subsidiaries, or you might have a parent company, and we have to take that into account when we're doing that. So don't worry too much about that. That is a check that we would do as part of our process to make sure that you can access the free support. On that. The really important one here is you do need to be responsible for the utility bills. So if you're some sort of maybe landlord and you've got a business landlord, and you've got a company in your premises, but they're the ones paying the bills, then we won't be able to help you. And that's purely because we're not going to be able to identify any savings to you. The savings are going to go to the bill payer. But you don't have to own the building. So if you're in a lease and you're still keen and interested in finding opportunities, then absolutely we can still provide support and advice for that. Brilliant. So very quick one, COP26. So that is happening later on this year, 1st to 12th of November in Glasgow. COP just really stands for Conference of Parties, so nothing exciting. What it is, it's the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference. So very important, very significant that it's taking place. Lots of different activities and things happening during that period, and we're probably expecting lots of different announcements from the Scottish Government in terms of maybe new commitments, new funding, and things like that. So I have no insight in that at all to share with you, but we're hoping that will be the case. What we have done is we've put 6 different webinars on to kind of support some of the key things happening through COP. And I'm not going to read them out, they're all listed here. First one starts on 28th of September. So we'll share the presentation, share the link to those. So if that's something that's of particular interest to you, absolutely, obviously sign up and feel free to go along to those webinars. The next one I just wanted to touch upon, and it's quite important in terms of what you're going to get from us in terms of our support. So when we're talking about net zero, it's about the business being carbon neutral and not increasing the levels of carbon dioxide emissions. And when we're looking at things, there's actually 3 different scopes, as you can see on the diagram there. So scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So our report focuses on what would be deemed as scope 1 items. So this is about the emissions that you're directly responsible for on site as a business. The other scopes are important and they do form part of your net zero journey, but they're not elements that we cover within our support on that. And that's looking at your energy supply and where they're getting their energy from, and any kind of transport related elements or procurement and things like that. So fuel costs, I wanted to bring this up just on there, just the stark difference there is on fuel costs. And as I mentioned right at the start of the presentation, they are going up. And I can vouch for that personally because I was paying around 14.5 pence for my domestic electricity supply. And I think the best tariff with quite a bit of shopping around is around 20 pence now. So that's just since last year. I was in a 12-month contract. So prices are going up. And what I wanted to share with this is that there's a huge difference between if you're fortunate enough to be on mains gas, so paying around 3.5 pence per kilowatt hour of heat. And that's important. We're looking at the same output from a heating system, but using different fuel types. So as you can tell that if you're using electricity, then you're paying what's that, nearly 4 times the price on there. So obviously, when we are doing our reports and we're trying to identify savings, then it will depend where you're shifting from what you're shifting to on there. So I've put the SOC pumps, which sit roughly in the middle. So they do consume electricity, and I'll mention that on my next slide. But the average running cost, depending on the efficiency of the heat pump, is around 6.5 pence. So it sits comfortably below electrical heating, if you've got that, or LPG or something like that, but it is going to be more expensive than if you're on mains gas. So if you're moving from mains gas and you're thinking, I won't go down the renewable route, then unfortunately, this is going to be one of the cases where absolutely fantastic carbon savings to be gained from that, but you're likely to be increasing your costs, at least for the interim until other fuel costs go up too. I've highlighted 3 terms that you may have heard of on there. One is the feed-in tariff. That no longer exists, but that was an incentive from the Scottish Government for any kind of electricity that you were generating on site and then feeding back into the grid. And that has been replaced by the other one there, SEG, SEG, Smart Export Guarantee. So you can still get a little bit of money from your energy supplier for any surplus electricity you generate on site. We're normally thinking about things like solar PV. On that, but the reality is you might be buying your electricity in again at this 15 or so pence, and the SEG, the highest one at the moment, is around 6 pence. So you're still kind of losing out on that. So it's not an investment to put PV hoping to get money back from what you put back into the grid. And the important one here is the renewable heat incentive. So for commercial premises or commercial systems, that ended in March last year. Or March this year, sorry, but for domestic properties. So you may have something like a bed and breakfast that is obviously being used as a business. It might also be your residential property, but actually in terms of Ofgem, it's regarded as a domestic property. So there may be still an opportunity to access the renewable heat incentive, but that does end in March next year. On that, and that's something we could absolutely include in our report if it was relevant as a financial incentive for going down the renewable heat route. Brilliant. Very, very quick one about heat pumps. Big push on these. I guess the key one I wanted to highlight on there, that actually it doesn't have to be warm outside, so heat pumps will work if it is below zero. The really important thing is all about the fabric of the building. And that's the real kind of, I would say, the deciding factor about whether a heat pump would be suitable for your business is whether you've got sufficient insulation to allow the system to work as it should, because it is a very, very different system to mains gas or oil or something like that. Brilliant. So in terms of the support that we provide, we're keen to kind of take you through the 4 barriers that we've identified on that. So I'll talk through each one. I guess the first one is just kind of lack of time. Where do I find time to do this? So the way we're trying to overcome this barrier is you would get assigned a dedicated advisor to support you through the process, such as myself. We've got advisors all across Scotland. Myself, I'm based in Inverness, so I'm up in the Highlands. So I tend to cover my area up here, but absolutely we can cover the whole of Scotland. And it's very much about helping you access the support, talking through the process in terms of what opportunities, answering questions you might have about heat pumps, about solar panels, about something you heard or whatever, and really kind of try and steer so we can put together a report that's relevant with what you want to do or you're interested in looking at. Obviously, we don't expect you to have the technical knowledge to know what the opportunities are, how to quantify them, things like that. So we have a set of framework contractors, again, all over Scotland, that can do reports either as telephone-based reports or as site visits, and they can provide that technical expertise. So that's looking at your business, understanding where your costs are going, highlighting the opportunities, and then more importantly, in our report, quantifying those opportunities for you. So you've got an idea of what can be done on that. The next slide I just want to show you is just a summary table in one of our reports. So just literally picked out at random. So you can see on the left-hand side, we looked at 6 different opportunities for this business. So we looked, option 1 was about the fabric of the building. Then we looked at the opportunity around an air source heat pump for the heating controls. We looked at solar PV, and we looked at wind turbine, and then we looked at opportunities around improving the glazing and any draft proofing measures on that. What we'll do in our report is for each of these opportunities, we want to give you an idea of roughly what costs. So it's not a quote by any means, but a rough indication of what costs might be involved in doing that improvement. So if we just take for the purpose of this, the first one, the fabric insulation. So we've said about £24,000 worth of insulation and materials and cost to put that in. But on that first column is the important one, is the financial savings that we would expect to be gained by doing that improvement. And a simple division of the two gives us a payback of approximately 7 years. All right. What we've got at the moment, and I will cover this later in the presentation, is there is some cashback grant funding available through the SME loan to help further reduce that initial investment that's required, and therefore it reduces the payback. So in this particular example, there is 30% cashback that's available to support this type of measure. That gives a potential cashback of just over £7,000, and that reduces that payback now to 5 years. Really important one to just remember. So initially it's 7 years if you're not taking the loan. With a cashback takes it down to 5 years. And that's the rest with the other measures on here. And obviously within the report, there is an explanation, a justification for all the calculations that we've done. We share the calculations that we do, so you understand how we've come up with them. And then obviously we'll highlight any risks that we feel there might be with that opportunity, or other factors to take into account. And that's really to allow you to look at something like this for your own business. You're not necessarily going to be in a position like for this business to spend over £100,000 in one go, but what it will allow you to do is start a journey and say, right, we can start doing this. Right, let's do the fabric of the building. Let's invest £25,000 on that. It's going to save us some money. Once we've paid that back, it might be in 3, 4, 5 years time down the road, then you might think about the next measure or the next opportunity. So entirely up to you. The really important one is there's no obligation to do anything that we highlight in the report. What we're trying to do is help you understand what the opportunities are, how valuable they might be financially, and obviously the real key one on the right-hand side is the carbon savings. So if you're looking to start that journey and start reducing the carbon footprint of your business, again, huge opportunities on there. So that again might be your driving factor. But as I start, it doesn't matter too much what your driving factor is. They are both the key ones are represented in our report. Brilliant. Once you've got the report, again, it really depends how big your business is, but if you are needing some support or further support in terms of putting a case to your manager or to a board of directors or things like that, then absolutely, we will continue. We can present that report. We can answer questions about it. We don't want the report itself to be any barrier to implementing. So great. Obviously, identified lots of opportunities. That report said potentially up to £100,000 of investment could be put into the business on various aspects. So what there is to support you with that, there is an SME loan, and that's provided through the Scottish Government. So the SME loan is anything between £1,000 up to £100,000. It is an unsecured loan with no setup charges or costs. And there are 2 separate pots of grant funding cashback available. So there's 30% cashback on what are deemed energy efficiency measures. So that would be things like lighting and insulation. And there's a whopping 75% cashback on renewable heat technologies, such as heat pumps. So both cashback pots, and there are 2 separate ones, are capped at £10,000. So it does mean there is an opportunity to get up to £20,000 per business of grant funding cashback on there. Now, the really other important one I would add to that is the loan is interest-free and it's over 8 years. So if we go back to the example that we talked through with the insulation, even without the cashback, the savings derived a payback of approximately 7 years, with a cashback down to 5 years. So I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that if you can have a loan that's interest-free for 8 years, and we estimate you can pay back your investment in 5 years, that means the costs of those repayments to the loan are still going to be cheaper than what you're spending on your energy at the moment. So you're not adding a cost to your business, you're actually going to be saving from day one. And obviously, once you've paid off that investment or the loan, that's where you get the full benefit and the full savings on there. Brilliant. Just again, I will share this. There's lots of different things. I've kind of focused on the most standard ones in terms of insulation. I've mentioned about lighting and heating. but the Sme Loan does cover quite a variety of other things. So there's a full list here, but it could be purely a part of a heating system. So if you're moving from radiators to an underfloor heating system, lots of different types of heating systems are covered in that. Insulation, it's not just your traditional loft insulation. It can be wall, it can be underfloor insulation. We're also talking about glazing, again, particularly the move from single to double glazing. There's huge benefits there. And if you're more into kind of manufacturing, then it can be variable speed drives, it can be types of equipment, it can be compressors and things like that. So there's lots of different things that are covered in there. This document will highlight in orange those that can get 30% grant funding cashback, in green those that get the 75% cashback. And there are some other renewable technologies such as solar PV that is still available, interest-free over those 8 years, but with no cashback at the moment. Brilliant. So hopefully talking through that, between having an advisor take you through this journey, having our experts do the reports for you, whether it's telephone-based or on-site, and if you need that business case on there, and obviously there is that support to access the Sme Loan, and again, we're more than happy to help you through that part of the process too, then hopefully they're the key barriers that you might be facing in terms of taking that next step to having a greener business. We've got quite a few people from Selco. So this is as close as I could find on our Green Network for Businesses. So we have one of our members at the Gala Rugby Club. So I think that's just 10, 12 miles down the road from some of you. I will share the link to the case study, but they've recently, or a few years ago, sorry, installed some solar PV. Interestingly, if you read the case study at the start, when we looked at solar PV, it was not a great opportunity. It had a very lengthy payback, and it just didn't match with when they were using energy. And I think they changed. They had some people using the club at different times, which meant that the PV became a really good opportunity. And it's providing about 70% of the electricity usage. It's reduced their bills by nearly £6,000 and about 11 tons of CO2 reduced as well from that. And they actually made use of the Sme Loan that I've just talked about to help them fund that. So great example on that. I was trying to find a photo of this PV at the stadium somewhere, and I just couldn't find it. So apologies, you've just got some people happily spectating on there. I just wanted to share some useful resources that we have on our website. So in addition to the support that we can provide through doing the report, if you're wanting to do a little bit more of a carbon footprint analysis, then there is a carbon footprint calculator that can be used. We've got lots of great templates for measuring and monitoring your energy. So if you're not doing that or not doing that in any kind of level of detail, again, really important. If you're wanting to reduce, if you're wanting to set yourself some targets to reduce, then you have to monitor, you have to have the data to allow you to do that on there. We've got templates to conduct a small audit yourself, if that's what you prefer to do, and that will kind of highlight some of the key opportunities, what they might be. Obviously not to the level of detail of the report that we can do that I've mentioned on that. If you've got quite a few employees in your business or organization and you want to try and get them engaged, then we've got lots of toolkits for staff engagement and ideas and things you can do on that. Similarly, as mentioned at the start, one of the webinars, we've got the CPD Certified Green Champions Training. So that comes in two formats. One is webinar based that we can do, and one is actually an online training tool where you can do little modules on different topics and just go a little bit deeper on each aspect on that on there. If you're thinking about travel, unfortunately, I've not mentioned it, and that's because it's not covered in our report at all. There is support and advice through the Energy Saving Trust in regards to that for businesses, whether you're thinking about charge points, whether you're thinking about getting an electrical EV on that. And then again, if you're thinking about generating some energy, I would say firstly, really important that you understand how a solar PV system works. So there are some really handy guides to help you do that. And then it's really, again, important to understand when you're using your energy. And actually, if there are opportunities to reduce the energy usage first, then absolutely that should be considered first. And that's likely to have a much lower investment or certainly a much quicker payback than a PV system would have on there. Fantastic, brilliant. So just come to past. That's kind of my last slide. So apologies if you feel I've rushed through it. Happy to obviously share contact details. So we've got a website that's got lots of the useful information, and that's where a lot of those links I was sharing take you to. We've got a free phone number helpline that you can call and speak to one of our colleagues, and we've got an email address that you can contact us on that. If you make contact with us, then as I've said, you'd get, first thing you'd do, you'd have a support request form to complete. So that's just a editable PDF file where you put a little bit of information about your business. You've got almost like a tick box of opportunities that you're thinking about that should be included in the report. Once you send that back to us alongside some of your bills, so we understand what tariffs you're paying and how much you're spending on your energy usage, at that point you get assigned to one of the business advisors, such as myself. And then it's very much at that point is kind of going at your pace. So we'll set up a call, chat through things. Again, it might be part of a plan that you've got, saying, you know, you're looking to do a refurbishment next year or something like that. Or you might just go, I need some help, I need some ideas, and then we'll talk you through that process to get a report to you. Fantastic. So that's my presentation finished. So hopefully there's still some people that are listening in. Be delighted to answer any questions from anybody. So I will stop sharing my screen to allow me to do that. Thank you.